I'm Stephen Garvey, founder, leader of National Citizens Alliance, NCA. Thank you for joining me tonight. And tonight we're going to look at a new policy comparison that the National Citizens Alliance released. And these are looking at some really key issues that are largely ignored in the mainstream media and by the mainstream parties. But we believe that Canadians are deeply concerned about these issues and they want something done about them. So we're going to get right into this. And I should preface this that from the National Citizens Alliance standpoint, policy is critical to any party organization for its successful decision making. Without policy, an organization would be subject to the whims of the day. Their decision making would be all over the map. And we all know that's not a way to run a country, let alone an organization. So if you look at National Citizens Alliance, we've taken considerable effort in writing our policies, thinking about them, listening to public feedback. We have about 70 policies on our website at nationalcitizensalliance.ca. Please take a look at them, go through them, look at our platform, and compare it to the mainstream parties. Another thing, too, to keep in mind about this tonight's presentation and the other policy comparison presentation that we did, that this is a way to distinguish different parties based on their policies and a way for the encourage the electorate to make a more informed decision in 2019. So this presentation is all towards that end. A lot of positives to be gained from here. So let's get right into this. This is the policy comparison that we released a few days ago. So we're comparing to 4 mainstream parties. So the first subject is political Islam. And you could put a slash here, Sharia. We view political Islam is Sharia, is political Islam. So what the National Citizens Alliance proposes and supports is a ban on the practice of political Islam / Sharia in Canada. Also, we support an amendment to Section 2 of the Charter on religious freedom. We do not believe that religions, ideologies that are fundamentally in contradiction to our free and democratic life in Canada should have open reign to practice what they want. Therefore, we believe there should be an amendment that there has to be reasonable limitations to Section 2 of the Charter. Because right now, there's certain ideologies and religions that are hiding behind Section 2. And this is wrong and needs to be addressed. And NCA will address it and will ask for the support of the Canadian people to get this done. Now let's look at the other parties. None of these mainstream parties have a policy on political Islam. Nothing. These 3 parties, the Conservative, Liberals, NDP, they all say, quote, Islam is all love and peace. Bernier's party, as mentioned, there's no policy and there's no mention of Islam, period. So that's your clear choice right there. If this is a big issue to you, you have a clear choice between NCA and the mainstream parties. And I should note here, every MP in Ottawa, every single MP in Ottawa that's in there now voted in favor of e-petition 411, the anti-Islamophobia e-petition. Basically, that e-petition, go look it up. It said Islam is all love and peace and has nothing to do with terrorism. This e-petition led to M103. So keep that in mind. Where were these politicians when it mattered most? Why are they politically correct? Why are they bowing down to Islam, the radical components of Islam? Why? And you have a clear choice, as we showed. If this is important to you, elect NCA. That's all we can say. Now we're going to shift. Multiculturalism Act and promotion and enhancement of foreign cultures in Canada. So this refers to the 1988 Multiculturalism Act, legislated and passed by the Conservative Party of Canada. And most notably, every successive government since has done nothing about this act, which is pushing, we would argue, a cultural Marxist agenda of pushing multiculturalism at the expense of traditional Canadian values. That's what's going on here. So let's look at the policies now. NCA has a policy. We want to rescind the Conservative Multiculturalism Act. We believe this act is counter to the best interests of Canadians, our traditional way of life. And we would replace this act with an act that promotes and enhances the traditional cultures of Canada. And we have that policy on our website. Please go look for more details. If we look at the mainstream parties here, there's no mention of this act. There's no change. They are happy with it. The Bernay Party has no policy, and there's no mention of the Multiculturalism Act and promotion and enhancement of foreign cultures in Canada. So again, if dealing with this act is an important issue with you and your family, or you as a single parent, or a single Canadian, then you have a clear choice in 2019. And let's shift down here to the third one, separation of religion and state. The National Citizens Alliance has a policy on this. We support absolute separation of religion and state. We do not believe religion should be interfering with the decision making of the state vis-a-vis the federal government. We believe in a secularized federal government that is fully separated from religion. And this is what the Renaissance, the Enlightenment is about in Western traditions, was breaking away from the influence of religion on state. Related to this, National Citizens Alliance opposes religion in the state. As examples, the Islamic Heritage Month, which is promoted nationally across the country and was created by the Harper regime in 2007. Also, Sikh Heritage Month, which was created by the Liberal regime in 2019. These are religious agendas that are being pushed in the federal government, and this is wrong. If we look at the other parties, they have no policy on the separation of religion and state. And these four mainstream parties here, they all support Islamic and Sikh heritage months as examples. Remember, Islamic, that's religious. Sikh, that is religious. Sikhism is a religion. Islam is a religion, ideology. They're all allowing religion to get into government decision making. This is wrong. You could argue this is pandering to minority votes. So you have a clear choice here. A clear choice when it comes to this issue. The third one is reduction in MPs' salaries and pensions. The National Citizens Alliance believes that serving the Canadian people should not be motivated by money, financial gain. This is a privilege to serve the Canadian people, an honor, and it should be done because you want to do the best for your people, your country. Therefore, NCA supports a reduction in the salaries and pensions to MPs in alignment with the average Canadian salaries and pensions. We would reduce the pension of an MP down to $50,000 per year after serving 2 full terms, and most notably, only receive the pension when a retirement age is reached. Because right now, MPs can access their pensions right away, and this is wrong. The salary of the MP would be reduced to $90,000 annual salary. However, we do make an exception. If there's an MP that has an average salary over the last 5 years before becoming MP that is higher, then we would allow that income for that particular MP, because we don't think they should be penalized because of the money they earned before becoming MP. Right now, the average salary of MPs is approximately $167,400 a year, not including extras on top. The Prime Minister is guaranteed $500,000 for life in pension after serving 1 term, and he or she can access right after the term if that is their only term in office. The PM salary right now is $334,800 a year. Opposition leader, multi-controlled opposition leader, $247,500 a year. These have to be reduced, the NCA believes. If we look at the mainstream parties here, no policy on this. So it's safe to assume that they support the status quo on the salaries and pensions. Now let's look at CBC. The NCA at one time had a policy of selling off the CBC to the highest bidder. We actually grew out of that. We realized that that's not a good policy to have. Because if it's sold off to the highest bidder, there's a good chance it'll be a globalist corporation that will own the CBC. And that would be counter to the interests of Canadians, Canadian nationalists, Canadian patriots across the country. So our updated policy, based on feedback, is that we will eliminate the inefficiency and redundancy in the CBC through a major corporate review of the structure. We will reform the mandate of the CBC in line with promoting Canadian traditional identity, heritage, and cultural norms. We will also establish a citizen-based board as a CBC watchdog. Those are the main highlights. Look at our policy for more details. If we look at the mainstream parties, the four that are listed here, no change. Emphasis on distinct budgets with no specifics. It's unclear what that means. There's no specifics. It doesn't make sense. The Liberals, they obviously support this $675 million in new funding. The NDP supports the $675 million in new funding as well. And if we look at Mr. Bernier here, he doesn't have a coherent policy. He just refers to some speech he made in 2016. It doesn't seem like he's put a lot of thought into this or cares about it, but he wants to streamline the mandate, whatever that means. He wants to switch to PBS NPR model. Yet, it's kind of paradoxical, contradictory. He wants to continue Harper level funding, less than $1 billion a year. So again, there's your choice there. Now the final one tonight is affirmative action. Affirmative action is bias, discriminatory hiring practices justified on helping minorities or so-called underprivileged. And let's look at this. If we understand affirmative action now federally, it was the Conservatives in 1986 that legislated and mandated affirmative action through what's called the Employment Equity Act. What's happening with this affirmative action that the Conservatives legislated, and this is pure socialism that the Conservatives legislated under Mulroney. What it's doing is favoring visible minorities, new migrants to Canada, refugees to Canada, over traditional Canadians, regardless if the traditional Canadians are more qualified for the job. This is legalized discrimination, job hiring discrimination by the Conservatives. Go look it up yourself. The NCA will rescind the Employment Equity Act and replace it with a merit-based approach to federal job hiring. We believe the best and brightest need to be in the federal government, in the public service. And that we shouldn't be catering to newcomers, to visible minorities, over more qualified Canadians, traditional Canadians. This is wrong. We will put a stop to this nonsense. If we look at the four mainstream parties here tonight, right there, the Conservatives, Liberals, and NDP all support the Employment Equity Act, including hiring new migrants and refugees over traditional Canadians. Bernier has no policy on this, and he has never mentioned the Employment Equity Act and hiring new migrants and refugees over traditional Canadians. So again, you have a clear choice. You have a clear choice. You can access this chart and another chart on our main website at nationalcitizensalliance.ca. Also, we have it on our Facebook page in the images. So please feel free to take a closer look. There we go. We are back. So feel free to take a closer look, and please share the policy comparison. Thank you for joining me tonight.